Hey, Troy, it's David. I'm just going to give a shout out to say that to the group that this stuff really works. In fact, I used it, Troy, on Thursday for a consultant I'm using to get my way into Trader Joe's. And this also was the same thing that kind of kicked it over the edge for him. So great stuff.
I brought on LJ. She has an accounting degree. She's been running the books controller for a lot of companies and a lot of mid-major companies. And I asked her, out of the companies that she's worked, and done the books on and everything, when she's gone into those companies, how many do it right? And she said 0. And then she's done, dozens of companies. I said, out of 10 companies, how many need this technology? She said, if you did 10, it would be all 10. So every single company needs this technology. And here's part of the reason why. We're doing a launch on this right now on the accounting. And I thought we would end up down here in the journals, okay, where their accounting is all prepped to the ledger for them and tied to the penny, okay? So that is huge because most are trying to do accrual accounting, but typically in their credit cards, they're not doing that because they have it's a spaghetti bowl mess. You have deposits coming late, there's fees being taken out now, and then there's deposits from those fees, transactions that are going to be deposited late. So they can't figure out the spaghetti bowl. So they end up, even though they're doing accrual accounting for most of their things, they end up with a cash, and they should be looking at that at a transactional level and then matching that up to all their receipts to make sure that everything that they actually ran actually truly did hit their batch. Right? So it's easy to say, well, the batch says $2,000 and I got deposited $2,000, but they need to confirm with every transaction they ran that day on their receipts, is everything actually in their batch? And then they have to track it. And so they're looking at the sales, the refunds, and the chargebacks, but then they have to look at it in 3 different time frames. So they have to go back and look at it for 3 critical dates, which were your authorization, your settlement, and your funded date. So they have to look through that and see how those are 3 different dates. Sometimes those are spread out even as far as a month. So for here, they're in 3 different dates. You went 17, 18, 19. Okay, but that's, those, they're having to look at all those reports in 3 different places. So today they have one place. So there is a 50% savings at least in time where they can come right into here, look at all the dates all tied up, and then they can come into here and say, okay, what was my actual batch? So here's my net collected sales. So this is unsuccessful sales, and they can look at that, but that was not deposited. So this is what actually should be in my bank account, and they can then look at all those transactions. But the key is, when you get down into the accounting side, that should already be done by you doing daily reconciliation. The automation of daily reconciliation, it is a massive importance. That is where they're going to find their missing transactions, their incorrect books, their missing deposits. And if they're not looking at this on a daily basis and at a transactional basis, we have proven that they are missing transactions. My main point here is, imagine in one location that all that behavior that they have to go check in all the different places and all the different dates are all tied into one page. And that's where she went to a summary. So the final summary here is this. So she showed, here's what we're missing. So these are all the numbers that I just showed you. This is what that balance was. And so right here, you have missing deposits. Were not recorded in their financial software, understated their sales for the month. We showed those. Here's your 60 transactions, all those yellows that were off, and it was from 1 penny up to $150. And then a transaction was shorted, so here you do have a partial off. I get merchants saying, yeah, I don't think we have any partial offs. I'm like, yeah, you do. That you have partial offs. I'm seeing it all over the place. Restaurants, now you're seeing it just with a retail customer. Your refunds, some refunds don't go all the way through. And then, so their total off in deposits was, $12,900, not recorded in their journals. then she writes out here, trying to go to all those multiple locations, as well as having to look at all the different dates in those locations where they were authorized, settled, and funded. It saved her more than 50% of the time in reconciling. So that's huge. So besides the missing revenue, the transactions that never were deposited, the understated income, there's a time savings of at least half the time on reconciliation. And so here's kind of the final summary. Golden A.I.T helps an accountant reconcile daily credit card transactions in half the time by not having to work back and forth between their NMI and M reports. Each batch balanced out perfectly to both reporting softwares, as you can see at the top of the report. In fact, it breaks down the entire day or date on the dashboard, and that is what helps to cut down the time looking for missing deposits and finding any discrepancies from what was authorized and what was funded in the batch. Having the ability to see when a transaction has been declined and needs to be reprocessed is vital information Golden A.I.T allows you to see immediately. She's not having to go into all three batches separately. They're all tied together with GAAP principles, which does it in days and months. So the carryover from each month was rolled back into the month that it was processed, as well as every day. We're not looking at those per batch where they batch 3 times. We're looking at it for the day. So that lines up with the bank easier, and she doesn't have to go back and forth in all these different batches.
Hey, Troy, it's David. I'm just going to give a shout out to say that to the group that this stuff really works. In fact, I used it, Troy, on Thursday for a consultant I'm using to get my way into Trader Joe's. And this also was the same thing that kind of kicked it over the edge for him. So great stuff.